Hello and welcome to another episode of the Islamic Finance Weekly, where we capture the activities in the non-interest finance market. Nigeria's government recently launched its Energy Transition Plan, which is a homegrown, data-backed and multi-pronged strategy to achieving net zero emissions by 2060, while solving energy poverty and lifting 100 million Nigerians out of poverty. The Energy Transition Plan is focused on 5 critical energy sectors, that is power, cooking, oil and gas, transport and industry, and this is estimated to cost $1.9 trillion. Under the Energy Transition Plan, Nigeria is expected to spend $1.9 trillion between now and 2060 to meet its goals. The plan estimates that business as usual will attract about $1.49 trillion in investment, leaving a deficit of $410 billion in incremental funding, translating to an average of $10 billion per annum. Looking at Islamic finance, the green Sukuk has been described as a viable instrument for sustainable environmental projects, which has been adopted by several countries in developing their energy and transport infrastructure. On today's program, the focus of our conversation will be on Nigeria's Energy Transition Plan, the role of green Sukuk financing. My guest is Mr. Adeoluwa Adejumo, who is currently the Managing Director of Guaranteed Power Limited. Good morning and thank you for coming on the program.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. The demand for green Sukuk for sustainable projects is increasing across the world, and according to the World Bank, nearly $27 trillion will be needed for renewable energy projects worldwide by 2023. And also the market for green Sukuk is expected to hit $2.4 trillion by early next year. Tell us your understanding of green Sukuk and how is it different from the common Sukuk bond that most investors are used to in the capital market?
Okay. Green Sukuk is a Sukuk which is a Sharia-compliant fixed income instrument that is structured in such a way that the process of this Sukuk are then channeled to climate change mitigation, climate change adaptation, and then environmental conservation projects. So that could be a renewable energy power plant, that could be managing waste, that could be recycling, that could even be waste to energy. So generally projects that add to the environment and infrastructure that benefits all in such a way that the impact to the environment is minimal.
So how is it different from the common Sukuk that most investors invest in the capital market? There is green Sukuk, there is the common Sukuk that you can have your investment certificate. What's the difference?
Yes, so the main difference is the focus on climate change. So the proceeds are channeled to climate-friendly projects.
Environmental projects.
Yes. So that's the main difference. The proceeds are channeled towards environmentally friendly projects.
Talking about green Sukuk, to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs and net zero targets, governments around the world will need to deploy a financing instrument that is good for the environment. And share with us your understanding of Nigeria's Energy Transition Plan and the role of green Sukuk financing.
Yeah, so the Nigeria Energy Transition Plan has set a target of universal energy access by 2030, net zero by 2060. They are looking at generating 40,000 jobs by 2030. So I think it's a plan that we can get around, and I think that Sukuk is a very viable option at attracting surplus funds. So, like you earlier mentioned, we need about $410 billion above baseline, and then we need about $1.9 trillion total. This is money that we currently don't have in the country. So the green Sukuk is a way to then attract surplus funds from a lot of not just corporates, but even government. So we're talking about Islamic countries' sovereign funds. So we can then attract surplus funds, especially when you look at a lot of the Islamic countries. You look at Bahrain, Qatar, Dubai, Saudi Arabia. They created their sovereign fund around the early of this century to sort of gather their surplus funds and then channel that to investments, infrastructure investments, both inside their country and outside their country to diversify their economy from oil. The green sukuk is a way to then tap into that because, again, these are foreigners. They understand the green sukuk. It gives them a level of comfort. They know that there's a level of corporate governance that is attached to the green sukuk. And in fact, the project owners are, would I say, merely stewards of the projects or managers of the project. So that gives them that comfort to then say, oh, I want to put $40 billion into a country that is not mine. So I think the green sukuk is a very viable alternative to attract that surplus fund. And then the returns can then also be attractive to them. We can pitch it because typically in a lot of the mature countries, you're looking at single-digit rate of return. But in Nigeria, we know that we can offer them double digits. So the green sukuk then makes it a viable vehicle to attract that surplus funds to us.
Absolutely, Mr. Adeoluwa. Green sukuk is an advantage for Islamic companies who want to realize environmental projects. And also it is an opportunity for investors who are environmentally friendly to evaluate their savings.
Absolutely, absolutely. Then the other thing would be that because renewable energy projects specifically tend to be capex heavy, so you're talking about most of the capital requirements being front-loaded. A lot of the, would I say, financial institutions in Nigeria currently don't have that much money, and even when they do, their timelines, they can't make a lot of the long-term investments that renewable energy, for instance, needs. So going to the green sukuk and using that to attract a lot of even the corporates, the external corporates that have the surplus funds is also a good reason to use a green sukuk.
Thank you very much for sharing your perspective with us. Talking about the energy transition plan and the role of using green sukuk to finance it. So, Nigeria would need to spend $410 billion above to deliver the transition plan by 2060, which translates to about $10 billion per year. So what are the policy enablers that can attract sustainable financing like green sukuk?
Yes, I'm not a very big believer in policy, but I would say that I would start with the basics. So I would say that the very first thing that we need to get is that we need to get the data, clear transparency, clear communication and feedback, so that all the players in the sector can then we can get a buy-in from all the players in the sector, both the local guys and then international guys. And then things can happen organically so that the local guys can then get foreign partners either for funding or technical expertise, and they can then execute projects in line with the master plan. So if there's clear communication, clear feedback, I know that this is going to cost, I know that let's say your state needs 100 megawatts, I know that I can supply 20 megawatts of that. I know that the permit will take me 2 years. I know it's going to cost $50 million. I know who exactly I need to talk to. I can then go talk to the foreign partners, or the foreign partners can then come talk to a local partner and then execute that. So I think clear data, transparency, communication, feedback, and timelines, so that people know exactly what to expect. That provides high levels of certainty. I think that works. Then the other thing might be government guarantees to say, okay, because we know, again, these projects require huge funds. And then we know that you're coming from outside of Nigeria to come invest in a foreign territory. You don't exactly know how everything works. So they can give some sort of either partial guarantees or full guarantees to say, okay, maybe we won't even buy your energy at market rate or at the year, but we can say we will be the buyer of last resort, and we can buy, let's say, 50% below market rate. So I'm not going to be the one guaranteeing your project, so to say, but I provide you a certain level of insurance. I provide you a floor so that you know that worst case scenario, I can always sell to this buyer. So again, I think the buyer of last resort arrangement or structure could work. I also think things like insurance against political risk, to say, okay, let's say you were to work with this current administration and then there's a new administration and there's a change in policy, come what may, again, you are secured. So that will give some level of comfort to whoever wants to come in, because then again, a lot of the players in the international sector, they are far ahead of us in terms of the technological expertise. They're not new to a lot of these projects, so they have the capital, they have the expertise. They just need to know that, okay, there are high levels of guarantees, contracts will be enforced, they are safe against political risk and things like that. So I think those are the two things that I think are the basics that we can start with before we begin to layer in, let's say, complex policies on top. I think first that clear, that transparency, communication, feedback, so that people sort of know what to expect. And then second would be to say some level of guarantees to say, okay, maybe we can buy at a below market rate as the buyer of last resort. You're not left hanging. Come what may, you are guaranteed to have at least a certain price for the energy that you produce. So that can then give them the confidence to go invest and even go overproduce, go over generate, knowing that they will never be left hanging.
Yes, those two keywords are very important: transparency and guaranteed, and also funding is also very important for us to achieve the transition energy plan. So can you share with us the opportunities and challenges in the green Sukuk market?
I'll start with the bad news. I think the green Sukuk is competing with all the other options that are available to, let's say, for instance, from my perspective, let's say the private project developers. So you can go to, you can tap into the foreign investors. They might take, let's say, 4 weeks. You know, the time to market is a big challenge. So I'm looking at, okay, if I go via a Sukuk, you're looking at every documentation. There's multiple legal structures that have to be put in place. And so the timeline will typically be longer. So I think maybe digitizing the process to speed things up, not necessarily that due process will be bypassed, or maybe digitization to make the process seamless could work. So and then that's all for me about the challenges. So maybe the time to market could be slower versus all the alternatives, say going with a private equity investor, going with a foreign equity partner, things like that. So I think time to market could be a challenge. For the opportunities, I think the opportunities are immense. For me, I don't see an issue with having to pay double digits, because inflation rate in Nigeria right now is about, let's say, 16 to 18%. So whatever Sukuk you're bringing to the market has to offer investors real returns. So that's something slightly above the inflation rate. So I don't see any issues with that. I also think that due to the structure of the Sukuk, you have a longer exit timeline, so you're not under pressure. You're not making short-term decisions. You can think long-term. So I think that's definitely an opportunity. And then because there's ownership in the project, so in a sense, the investors are taking a risk with you. They're taking a risk with you, and so if you come under some sort of would I say stress, let's say COVID or some Russia-Ukrainian war or something else that happens, there can be a pause. It's not like a debt payment that has to be. So there's that flexibility with Sukuk. So I think the opportunities are immense. And then when you look at the fact that the market is relatively young, so think of it like a baby. So the only other option for a baby is to grow. So it's definitely going to grow. So the opportunities are immense, both with the Sukuk and then with energy. If you look all throughout the continent, we're still at the very early stages. Energy, solar adoption, for instance, in Nigeria is at about 2%. In South Africa is at 8%. even if you think 8% is all we're ever going to go, that means we still have a 400% increase. So the opportunities are definitely immense for people who know where to look.
What is the outlook for green Sukuk market in Nigeria and Sub-Saharan Africa?
It's positive. It's positive. Like I said earlier, you need to think about this like a new baby, a young baby. That's no other choice but to grow. So you look at whether you look at Nigeria, Ghana, or you look at Kenya is working really, really hard to be like the regional leader in Islamic finance. And in fact, they were ahead of us in issuing a sovereign Sukuk. If you look at even Namibia with the current energy projects they are trying to do, and even South Africa. So the trend is up and up. The trend is up and up, and I think that we are going to be positively surprised. In fact, when you look at all the sukuks that have been raised so far in Nigeria, most of them have been typically oversubscribed by an opportunity. So the only thing we need to maybe do is to fix, let's say, the supply side, right? Because there's a lot of demand for it in the market.
Indeed, green Sukuk remains a viable tool for financing Nigeria's development. And that was Mr. Adejumo Adeoluwa, the Managing Director of Guaranteed Power Limited. Thank you very much for sharing your perspective with us on Nigeria Transition Energy Plan and the role of green Sukuk. We appreciate your intervention. Have a nice day.
Thanks so much for having me, and have a nice day too.
Bye. As nations begin to adopt sustainable financing measures to drive their energy transition plans, green Sukuk has emerged as an attractive instrument in the market. For Nigeria, Africa's largest economy, the way to go is developing strategic and bankable sustainable projects that align with the shift to renewables to attract green Sukuk financing. Non-interest financial institutions, regulators, and the government at the federal, state, and local government levels can, in strategic partnership, identify critical sectors for projects that can be financed by green Sukuk. It will support the goal of lifting millions out of poverty and achieving economic growth. That will be all for this edition of the Islamic Finance Weekly. You can log on to our website, proshare.co, to watch our videos and read our news stories. Also follow our social media platforms to get further updates on developments in the non-interest finance industry. Till we come your way again, thank you for watching, and bye for now.